Hello, so today we're going to talk about movement, how infantry moves and how cavalry moves after they've received orders, and we're going to talk about how they move around the battlefield. So we'll start off with light infantry. So here's your light infantry here. At the minute they're all in line, so they're acting as a normal unit. So if they're given orders to move and they pass, they'll quite simply just move forward like this. They're allowed to do one 45-degree turn. It can even be a pivot. And even if they do two moves, they're only allowed to do that one 45-degree turn. Because they're light infantry, you can order them into open order, like this. So then they're free to do as many turns as they like, and they can just bimble about however they wish, like that. All measurements, sorry, my arm's in the way. All measurements are taken from the command stand for moving. So say you want to move these 10 inches, which is 2 moves. You can measure from any point on that command stand, move that base, the 10 inches, and then move all the other bases up to it, like that. This is the same for all the units in the game. You take all the measurements from the center unit, move that central unit, and turn it at 45 degrees, whatever it wants to turn, and then do that. Now, skirmishing troops. If they want to go across some broken ground like this, let's move them back a tiny bit more. So, skirmishing troops wanting to get across there, because they're in loose order, they suffer no penalties. So you take your command guy, you measure your 10 inches. If you want to go all the way across, they could quite happily do that if they've got the movement to do so. Or if you want, you can leave them in this broken ground and then they'll count as being in cover, like that. And also, skirmishers get as a charge reaction to cavalry, they'll be allowed to flee, but I'll go more into that in the melee section. But for now, skirmishers moving across the battlefield in open order can quite happily move through all terrain, all difficult terrain, difficult ground, woods, etc. with no movement penalties. So now you've got your basic formed up battalion. And at the minute they're just in 4 deep, but the same will apply regardless of what formation you've got them in. Moving back a touch. So say you wanted to move them forward and come over this direction a little bit. You measure from your central command stand, do your first move, turn, do your second move. Then you move everybody else up to that base. It will mean that some of the guys on the corners here will move more than their allotted movement that they got, so like 5 inches. So some of these on the ends will be moving, I don't know, if they do a double move, they'll be moving 12, 13 inches, something like that, but it doesn't matter as long as that command base doesn't move any more than 10. That's where you do all your measurements from, that guy. And you can measure any point on his base. So, let's say you want to get these across this broken ground. So you give them a move order, they move 2 inches up to there, that leaves them 3 inches on that move, but because they're going into broken ground, they halve their movement. So they'll get 1.5 inches in. And then for the second move, they'll get 2.5 inches. So it's going to take quite a while to get through that broken ground. Also, while they're in the broken ground, they will count as being disordered until they manage to get themselves out and clear. And that's the whole unit clear. It would be the same if they was in line or in march column or attack column or however you form them up. If they go through any movement ground, it's going to halve the movement. Except gun up hills, that's okay. There's no movement penalty for that, up and down hills. But for broken ground, woods, and other things, it's going to halve the movement. Okay, so you're going to have some buildings on the battlefield, and sometimes you're going to want to place troops in them. So this unit of Swiss is marching up to this building. They're in attack column, but they're not going to attack this building. They're just going to move into it. So all they have to do is be given orders, provided that command stand can touch the base of the building, then they'll count as all being moved in. Obviously, they'd struggle to get everybody in that one, but you know, for argument's sake, they're all in the building from then on. If it's a building like that and they can't all fit in, you're going to have to judge it for yourselves and decide what you think's fair. But that is the basic rule for buildings. If you can move up to it, you can get in it. So, for movement, if you want to do a reform, that takes one move action. Everyone reforms around the command base. So let's say we want to change formation into 4 deep line. They pass their orders, one move action, and these 2 bases will just form up like that. And then that unit has then changed formation. So that's one move action. And then they'd use the other to just move. If you want to turn, so say you just want to turn to face that way. So the whole unit will turn. It will in effect do that. And then these will come up to here. That just takes half of one move action. So you'd still be able to move 2.5 inches. And then if you want to turn back again, that's just to represent that if you want to move your units sideways a little bit, you can do that. So if you wanted to use 2 move actions to move 5 inches that way, you could do it because you've just turned around, moved again, and turned back. Sometimes you find troops a little bit out of position and you just want to move them sideways a little bit. So that makes it possible to do that. The same with moving backwards. You can turn them all round, which takes half a move action, and turn them all back again, because obviously you don't want to be facing away from the enemy, because that's a bad thing. So you can just move them backwards 5 inches, and that counts as one move action. Sorry, that counts as 2 move actions. So let's say your troops come to a tricky position like this. They're in 4 deep line, and they want to move through that gap there. Now, if they move across the terrain, it's going to take them forever. So the best bet from here is to change formation into march column, and then just thread the way through that gap. Now, when they're in march column, they can do as many turns as they like. And because they're in march column, they can add D6 to each move action. So for the first move action, they would move into march column. So again, remember, everybody moves around the command base. And then they would start threading the way through that gap. And for each move action they use after that, they will add D6 to the move. So you measure from that guy, might as well push front base forward as well. So you get your full 10 inches. Excuse me. And then you'd add 2d6 to that because you're in column. And then after that, you could change back into whatever formation you wanted. The other thing to remember is when you are in march column, you are more susceptible to fire, so you count as being enfiladed all the time. And I'll get more into enfilading when we talk about shooting. When I was talking about formations, I forgot to mention one thing. So another formation your guys could go into is square. So again, you just form up on the center base like that. Or you can have 2 in the center, however you want to do it. Like that. And that is basically forming square. And that's to protect you against cavalry charges and stuff like that. When you're in square, it's pretty tricky to move, so all movement distances are halved. So your squares can just shuffle about a little bit. This is just more for gameplay than anything else, because sometimes you'll need to just move them a little bit to make the game more sensible. Also, when you get, as your counter's been enfiladed at all times, so you are susceptible to more fire. Again, I'll talk about that in the main rules. And then in the actual rules that I've written, it says when there's one base left, you can't be a square anymore, but when there's 2 bases left like that, you can still be counted as a square. Once that base is destroyed, your command saying counts as being destroyed as well anyway. So when you remove that last base, that base just goes with it. So the final thing for infantry when moving that I want to talk about is, I mentioned it before, but you can take your light company and place them in front of the parent unit like that. These act as a screen then, and they'll give +1 save to your parent unit. The only disadvantage though is you cannot shoot through your own troops. We'll get more into that in the shooting phase. So your parent unit won't be able to fire, but it does mean it can move across the battlefield a lot quicker. And it does get an advantage to its save. Or you can just leave it on there, and then you can still shoot. The choice is yours on that one. So that's infantry. So when we get to cavalry, cavalry move exactly the same way. You take all your measurements from the central base. If they go into march column, they do exactly the same thing. Counters being enfiladed the whole time. It's good to do when they're out of range at the back of the battlefield, when you're playing on a really large battlefield. On a 6x4, you're probably not going to adopt this very much, because you will be enfiladed and you'll end up getting decimated quite quickly. And they just, all measurements taken from there. Once again, in march column, they can do as many turns as they want. They can twist about all over. And then if they're in any other formation, they get 1 45-degree turn in each movement phase. Even if they do 2 moves, they can go, well, we just turn in 45 degrees and they can move. And they'll end up facing that direction. Again, 1 move action to change formation. Everybody moves to the central base, like that. That counts as 1 move action. Again, some of your troops are going to move more than the allotted amount. Doesn't matter, as long as that base doesn't move any further. So cavalry move exactly the same. If they go through broken ground, they halve the movement, and they can be deployed like this in a block. You will get supporting attacks in combat. We'll go more into that in the melee phase. Or you can put them in a big long line. It's entirely up to you. So that's pretty much it for movement. If I've missed anything and somebody's got the rules, because I'm bound to have missed something, just pop it in the comments below. At the end of all these videos, what I'm going to do is I'll play through a couple of turns of a battle and put everything into practice, so you can actually see it all working together with me rolling dice, and how the troops actually react on the battlefield and stuff like that. But for now, I'm just going to keep talking about how everything works, so you get a general idea, and then we'll put it all into practice on the battlefield. And again, if anyone wants a copy of the rules, drop me an email, and I'll be quite happy to send that on to you. And apart from that, next video will be about shooting. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.